Hello, and welcome to this final exploring session of our look at the tragedy of Tancred and Gismund. Not to be confused with Gismund of Salerne, which is the earlier version of this text. They are very, very similar, but this is the later printed version, printed in 1591, of a play that was performed in the 1560s, 1566, 7, 8-ish. This printing came about allegedly because of fan demands that it must be printed, that it has been suppressed because of its wonderfulness, or not. The play's written by four different authors, all of whom have quite different styles, we've been finding. And finally, we are coming to the part written by Robert Wilmot, who supervised it going into printing and made some additions and adjustments to the text for its final state. But we are now going to get, shall we say, his authentic voice in this session. We are also, as a bonus, going to be reading just the ending, the original ending from the earlier text version. One day we will go back and read the whole thing, but that's going to take a little while for that script to be put into the works. So we're going to read with some original spelling the original ending, which is slightly different and I think worth comparison. Also, before we start, we're going to read some sonnets to the Queen's Maidens of Honour, because there's lots of additional material that came with this text that is quite fun to read. Reading these various bits and pieces today, reading chorus number 1, and also we'll be reading a sonnet, is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I have my own darkness.
He carries it around with him in a bag and every so often just lets it out. Reading chorus number 2, and Julio, is...
I'm Rachael, and I have my own cat.
Reading chorus number 3, and Gismunda, is...
Hello, I am Lynsey, and I don't think I have anything truly my own.
Reading that's such a conceptual statement that I almost don't know where to go with it. Reading Renuchio, and also chorus number 3 when chorus number 3 can't read chorus number 3, and also one of the sonnets, is...
Hi, I'm Greg, and my head already hurts. Oh, and I forgot my heart, sorry.
And reading variously the chorus as listed when singular, and also chorus number 4, and also Tancred, the daddy with so many issues, is...
Hi, I'm Alex, and I have my own issues.
He does indeed. He will also be reading one of the sonnets to the Maidens of Honour, who we will say are Rachael and Lynsey for this particular thing. So perform these sonnets. I don't really know the precise context. I'm assuming this is from the original context of performance, but I don't know if it is or not. So, Greg. No, Eric, could you read the first sonnet, please? So this is Preface to the Queen's Maidens of Honour, sonnet number 1, a sonnet of the Queen's Maids.
They which tofore thought the heaven's throne is placed above the skies, and there do feign the gods and all the heavenly powers to reign, they err, but to deceive themselves alone. Heaven, unless you think Mo be the one, is here in earth, and by the pleasant side of famous Thames at Greenwich Court doth abide. And as for other heaven, is there none. There are goddesses we honor, so their palace sits, there shineth Venus's face. Bright beauty there bright beauty there possesses all the place. Virtue and honor there do live and grow. There reigneth she, such heaven that doth deserve, worthy whom fair goddesses should serve.
So Rachael and Lynsey can decide which is Venus, and which is Pallas. Next up, I'll ask Greg to read sonnet number 2, another to the same.
Flowers of prime, pearls couched all in gold, light of our days that glads the fainting hearts of them that shall your shining gleams behold. Salve of each sore, recure of inward smarts, in whom virtue and beauty striveth so as neither yields. Behold here for your gain Gismund's unlucky love, her fault, her woe, and death. At last her cruel father slain through his mishap. And though you do not see, yet read and rue their woeful tragedy. So Jove, as your high virtues done deserve, grant you such fears as may your virtues serve. With like virtues and blissful Venus send unto your happy loves and happy end.
Yes, love doesn't always end happily, but hopefully it will for you. And sonnet number 3, Alex, another to the same, please.
Gismund, that whilom lived her father's joy and died his death, now dead, doth, as she may, by us pray you to pity her annoy, and to requite the same doth humbly pray heavens to forfend your loves from like decay. The faithful Earl doth also make request, wishing those worthy knights whom ye embrace, the constant truth that lodged in his breast, his hearty love, not his unhappy case, befall to such as triumph in your grace. The king prays pardon of his cruel hest, and for amends desires it may suffice, that by his blood he warneth all the rest of fond fathers, that they in kinder wise entreat the jewels where their comfort lies. We, as their messengers, beseech ye all on their behalfs to pity all their smarts. And for ourselves, although the worth be small, we pray you to accept our humble hearts, avowed to serve with prayer and with praise your honours, all unworthy other ways.
Thus ends these not really sonnets. Yes, it's interesting because sometimes they feel quite performy and sometimes they feel quite reedy. So I'm quite interested to know precisely what the context they were produced for. It feels like the kind of thing you might hand in, to one of the maidens of honor if the Queen's watching the show, as here's a little thing and there's a lovely sonnet for you and here's some poetry, rather than they would actually spend time saying that, especially if the Queen was not in a good mood at the time.
It felt a bit like Blind Date.
I'm not going to linger on this particularly. It was just a little warm-up and a little taster. It's another element of the text from the printed text that I think it's from the printed text that I just wanted to throw out there because we've really enjoyed some of this extra material, these paratexts that we've been able to play with. So it was nice to throw another one in. Lynsey.
Just remarking on the bad taste of offering their hearts at the end of that third sonnet. Given the spoilers that we've had and what we know is coming.
Yeah, because these do spoil the plot as it goes as well. They're sort of semi-explaining the plot, so I'm sort of wondering if that's sort of part of their function as well. So I'm quite interested in why these things come about. I'm going to continue talking briefly about nothing at all while everybody makes sure they reach Act 5. Because we have reached Act 5 in the play. We've looked at the first 4 acts. Different hands, slightly different voices. Gismunda has a father with some issues. She has been struck by the arrow of Cupid, vampire Cupid's arrows. And she is very much in love with this nice chap, Giscard, who has been taken away to be killed quite thoroughly. So I don't think we're going to see him again, whereas Gismunda has been sent to her room. Act 4 has ended with the chorus being particularly uncheerful, and the chorus haven't really interacted with the text so far. They've done some singing, and they have done some group singing with characters on stage, but they haven't really spoken with everyone. They've sort of commented on the action at the end. Act 5, they get their chance to step into the spotlight. So we also open this with something of a dumb show. There's a lot of music, there's a lot of spectacle, there's a lot of visual things going on in this play. So for Act 5, before this act was a dead march played, during which entered on the stage Renuchio, captain of the guard, attended upon by the guard. They took up Giscard from under the stage. Then after Giscard had kindly taken leave of them all, a strangling cord was fastened about his neck, and he haled forth by them. Renuchio bewaileth it, and then entering in, bringeth forth a standing cup of gold, with a bloody heart reeking hot in it, and then saith, etc., etc. Act 5, Scene 1, Renuchio cometh out of the palace.
Oh, cruel fate! Oh, miserable chance! Oh, dire aspect of hateful destinies! Oh, woe may not be told. Sufficed it not that I should see and with these eyes behold so foul, so bloody, and so base a deed? But more to aggravate the heavy cares of my perplexed mind, must I alone be made the messenger, that must deliver to her princely ears such dismal news as when I shall disclose, I know it cannot but abridge her days, as when the thunder and three-forked fire, rent through the clouds by Jove's almighty power, breaks up the bosom of our mother earth and burns our heart before the heat be felt. In this distress, whom should I most bewail? My woe that must be made the messenger of these unworthy and unwelcome news? Oh, shall I moan thy death, O noble earl? Or shall I still lament the heavy hap that yet, O queen, attends thy funeral?
What moans be these? Renuchio, is this Salern I see? Doth here King Tancred hold the awful crown? Is this the place where civil people be, or do the savage Scythians here abound?
What mean these questions? Whither tend these words? Resolve us, maidens, and release our fears. Whatever news thou bring'st, discover them. Detain us not in this suspicious dread, the thought whereof is greater than the woe.
Oh, whither may I cast my looks? To heaven? Black, pitchy clouds from thence rain down revenge. The earth shall I behold, stained with the gore of his heart blood that died most innocent. Which way soe'er I turn mine eyes, methinks his butchered corpse stands staring in my face.
We humbly pray thee to forbear these words so full of terror to our maiden hearts. The dread of things unknown breeds the suspect of greater dread until the worst be known. Tell therefore what hath chanced, and whereunto this bloody cup thou holdest in thy hand.
Since so is your request, that I shall do, although my mind so sorrowful a thing repines to tell, and though my voice eschews to say what I have seen. Yet, since your will so fixed stands to hear for that I rue, your great desires I shall herein fulfill. Fast by Salern city, amidst the plain, there stands a hill whose bottom huge and round, thrown out in breadth a large space doth contain, and gathering up in height small from the ground, still less and less it mounts. There sometime was a goodly tower upreared, that flowered in fame while fate and fortune served. But time doth pass, and with his sway suppresseth all the same. For now the walls be evened with the plain, and all the rest so foully lies defaced, as but the only shade doth there remain of that which there was built in time for past. And yet that shows what worthy work tofore has there been reared. One parcel of that tower yet stands which eating time could not devour, a strong turret compact of stone and rock, huge without but horrible within, to pass by which by force of handy stroke a crooked strait is made that enters in, and leads into this ugly, loathsome place, Within the which, carved into the ground, deep dungeon there runs of narrow space, dreadful and dark, where never light is found. Into this hollow cave by cruel hest of King Tancred, where divers servants sent to work the horror of his furious breast, erst nourished in his rage, and now stern bent to have the same performed. I, woeful man, amongst all the rest, was one to do the thing that to our charge so straitly did belong, in sort as was commanded by the king. Within which dreadful prison when we came, the noble Count Palarin, that there lay chained in gyves, fast fettered in his bolts, out of the dark dungeon we did uprear, and haled him thence into a brighter place, that gave us light to work our tyranny. But when I once beheld his manly face, and saw his chair, no more appalled with fear of present death, than he who never dreaded once a mate. My heart abhorred then to give consent unto so foul a deed, that wretched death should receive so worthy a man. On false fortune I cried with loud complaint, that in such sort o'erwhelms nobility. But he whom never grief so ne'er fear could taint, with smiling cheer himself oft willeth me to leave to plain his case, or sorrow make for him. For he was far more glad to pay death to embrace thus for his lady's sake, than life or all the joys of life, he said. For loss of life, quoth he, grieves me no more than loss of that which I esteemed least. My lady's grief, lest she should rue therefore, is all the cause of grief within my breast. He prayed, therefore, that we should make report to her of those his last words which he would say, that though he never could in any sort her gentleness requite, nor never lay wherein his power to serve her as he would, yet she possessed his heart with hand and might to do her all the honour that he could. This was to him of all the joys that might revive his heart the chiefest joy of all, that to declare the faithful heart which he did bear to her fortune so well did fall, that in her love he should live and die. After these words he stayed and spake no more, but joyfully beholding us each one, his words and cheer amazed us so sore that still we stood, when forthwith thereupon, why slack you, quoth he, to do the thing for which you come? Make speed and stay no more, perform your master's will. Now tell the king he have his life for which he longs so sore. And with those words himself with his own hand fastened the bands about his neck. The rest, wondering at his stout heart, astonished stand to see him offer thus himself to death. What stony breast, or what hard heart of flint would not relent to see this dreary sight? So goodly a man whom death nor fortune's dint could once disarm, murdered with such despite, and in such sort bereft, amidst the flowers of his fresh years, that rueful was to seen. For violent is death when he devours young men's or virgins while their years be green. Lo, now our servants, seeing him take their hats, Lo, now our servants, seeing him take the bands, on his neck himself to make them fast, without delay set to their cruel hands, and sought to work their fierce intent with haste. They stretch the bloody bands, and when the breath began to fail his breast, they slacked again. Thrice did they pull, and thrice they loosed him, so did their hands repine against their hearts, and oft times loosed to his greater pain. But date of death that fixed is so fast, beyond his course there may be no wight extend. For strangled is this noble earl at last, bereft of life, unworthy such an end.
Oh, damned deed!
What deem you this to be? All the sad news that I have to unfold is here, think you, end of cruelty that I have seen?
Could any heavier woe be wrought to him than to destroy him so?
What think you this outrage did end so well? The horror of the fact, the greatest grief, the massacre, the terror is to tell.
Alack, what could be more? They threw Percase, the dead body, to be devoured and torn at the wild beasts.
Would God it had been cast a savage prey to beasts and birds. But lo, that dreadful thing which e'en the tiger would not work, but to suffice his hunger, that have the tyrant king without ruth commanded us to do, only to please his wrathful heart withal. Happy had been his chance, too happy, alas! If birds or beasts had eaten up his corpse, yea, heart and all within this cup I bring, and am constrained now unto the face of his dear lady to present the same.
What kind of cruelty is this you name? Declare forthwith, and whereunto doth tend this farther plaint?
After his breath was gone, forced perforce thus from his panting breast, straight they despoiled him, and not alone contented with his death, or the dead corpse which ravenous beasts forbear to lacerate, even upon this our villains fresh begun to show new cruelty. Forthwith they pierced his naked belly, and ripped it so that out the bowels gushed. Who can rehearse their tyranny wherewith my heart yet bleeds? The warm entrails were torn out of his breast, within their hands trembling, not fully dead. His veins smoked, his bowels all too reeked, ruthless were rent and thrown about the place. All clotted lay the blood in lumps of gore, sprent on his corpse and on his painted face. His trembling heart, yet leaping out, they tore, and cruelly upon a rapier they fixed the same, and in this hateful wise unto the king his heart, and unto the king this heart they do present, a sight longed for to feed his ireful eyes. The king, perceiving each thing to be wrought as he had willed, rejoicing to behold upon the bloody sword the pierced heart, he calls then for this massy cup of gold, unto the which woeful heart he cast. And reaching me the same, now go, quoth he, unto my daughter, and with speedy haste present her this, and say to her from me, thy father have here in this cup thee sent that thing to joy and comfort thee withal, which thou lovest best, even as thou wert content to comfort him with his chief joy of all.
Oh, hateful fact! Oh, passing cruelty! Oh, murder wrought with too much hard despite! Oh, heinous deed, which no posterity will once believe!
Thus was Earl Palarin strangled unto the death. Yea, after death his heart and blood disbowed from his breast. But what availeth plaint? It is but breath, for wasted all in vain. Why do I rest here in this place? Why go not I and do the hateful message to my charge committed? Oh, were it not that I am forced thereto by king's will, here would I stay my feet, nay, one whit further weighed in this intent. But I must yield me to my prince's hest. Yet doth this somewhat comfort mine unrest. I am resolved her grief not to behold, but get me gone, my message being told. Where is the princess's chamber?
Lo, where she comes.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Having just literally said, I really don't want to see her. Here she comes. Here she comes. Okay. So many thoughts about this sequence. I mean, it's very, very well written, in the sense that it really enjoys lengthy descriptions of brutal murder. You can tell this is written by boys who are only just the other side of teenage. It really does feel like it's a student thing where it's just, yeah, and there's blood. And you can almost, I don't know what the difference between the earlier text is precisely here, but I mean, it's so gothic. It's so over the top. It so milks it. It makes it worse and worse. I mean, this build-up of the journey, I think, is really interesting. Of getting to this place of horror, the details of the strangulation that they keep loosing it and that's just that got me, actually. That was the bit, I can sort of cope with there's blood and there's that kind of stuff, but that bit was really really over OTT. I mean, we've talked about horror films and things previously, and I was pitching, Lynch. All the stuff about the unripping bowels and stuff is very like Twin Peaks Series 3. There's a few moments in that are very like that. So, yeah, I'm sticking with that. I think we should, hire Lynch. I've talked a lot. Thoughts from the room. Rachael, then Eric.
No, this part just got me thinking about how, like, just all these different parts, how you would put them on, because there is this very poetic language, and I think in some of these, the reason for that poetic language and that setup is not just for the sake of the plot, but I think maybe being a student production, this was low budget and they could not do so many things, and so they have to have this these monologues, and these how some of these are just back-to-back monologues to just explain things, because they couldn't switch out the sets, or they couldn't have they just didn't have the budget. And then also just go.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I don't think the budget is the issue. I mean, the thing is, we've got the dumb show at the beginning, so they do show everything that he now tells us. We have a sort of miniature version. I mean, how bloody, it might be very symbolic rather than literal. So, they basically do show us it before they then tell us all about it. I think it's so, yeah, I don't think it can be that. As a reason, because it's but sorry, do continue if there was more.
Then I guess my only other thing is just so many of them I think lean so strongly into like poetry and these poetic ways of thinking, like saying that like she possessed his heart. It's like there's so much doubling, I think, double meaning in the words that they use, like because there's the words like possessed his heart, and revive, how to revive his heart, and like breath began to fail in his breast, like she takes his breath away, he seems down in the dumps, and until she's around nothing can revive him, and it's like she's got a hold on his heart, which she will physically in a minute, but it's also like Cupid, who's disappeared, is kind of acts like, not just like a vampire, but like a ghost. And it has that like secondary thing of these people are kind of being haunted and plagued by all these supernatural beings from every corner of mythology.
Yeah, they've got Furies in the floorboards. They've got Cupid in the attic. It's this house has seriously got a supernatural infestation. I like the idea of the was it trauma you said? There's something you said, the haunted. When Renuchio is coming on, he's clearly traumatized by this. He thinks he can still see this bloody corpse in front of him. Which way soe'er I turn my eyes, methinks his butchered corpse stands staring in my face. He can't get it out. So there's a sort of, maybe it's a trauma thing that he just can't stop talking. If we're going for psychology, which we don't necessarily have to go with this text. Sorry, Eric.
I was just gonna say that I like how after Renuchio, there's this long description of like how he was hanged and stuff. The chorus goes, "Oh damn, indeed," and then Renuchio goes, "Wow, how dare you interrupt me? I was in the middle of something there. I had something to say." And obviously he doesn't say it like that, but it's just like the way it's written. It's like, what, deem you to this to be all the sad news I have to tell you?
No, there is more. I have got so much more. But yeah, I like that. I also like the fact that he breaks it up a bit. I say it's taken us on this journey, a very physical journey to the place of horror. And then, you get to where you think it might be the ending, and it might be part of a sort of an audience response of just, whoa, that was horrible, and just, no, there's more. There's more. Other thoughts, Greg?
I was reminded me a lot of Greek chorus.
Mm.
With the sort of everything, I don't know, because I don't know the rest of the play that well, but everything happening off stage. And also weirdly reminded me, something reminded me earlier, Elliot's The Family Reunion, and it's very odd, choric. But no, I love those speeches. They were a joy to do. They were so much fun. Horrible, but great fun. I could actually, it's it's good when you can visualize it in your head, and the idea of him presenting the bands and saying "kill me," and then the sort of the description of releasing the bands and then tightening the bands again was just incredible. Love that text.
I mean, if you buy into this kind of thing, then this is absolutely, well, I'd say nectar, but it's Cupid's already established that not interested in nectar. We're interested in blood here, people. Alex, then Lynsey.
Yeah, it was interesting hearing you sort of talking about the because it is overkill, and I'd originally thought this is sort of going along the lines of a Dryden play where everything's happening off stage and we're being told about it afterwards, but the vividness of the language sort of works against that. But am I right in thinking the chorus is a chorus of maidens, of...
Yeah, that seems to be that's who they are, yes.
Because that sort of heightens the whole kind of... I think that's why it reminded me when I put Tarantino in the chat box, because I have to personally, I can't bear his movies. Because they always come across to me as a bit sort of puerile of kind of going, what disgusting things can I do to make the audience go, there is an art to them. I can absolutely see that there's an artist in them. But some of that, even under that poetry, which I love, sort of sounds like, particularly with like, maiden characters on stage, kind of like these boys kind of going, I bet I can be even more disgusting and tell you something that's going to make you reel even more. And there was an odd moment at the beginning. I mean, I may have this wrong because when you come in this, where one of the chorus, I tend to expect my choruses to know a bit more, and one of them kind of basically went, "Where are we?" Or it seemed like that to me, which is odd in Act 5 if they've been present before, that they should suddenly be asking where they are geographically, because they don't even seem to be sure which country they're in.
That does feel like very much a call back to Greek drama. The stuff that they've read. You remember that in the 1560s we're suddenly getting popular printed editions of Seneca and things like that. So post Greek, shall we say? So if that's the really in thing, then I fully expect quite overt lifts from that sort of material, and that feels very, very that kind of thing. We chorus have entered. What are these cries that we hear? Are we in Salern? And it feels like that because they are really very knowing chorus throughout most of the rest of the play. They're there all the time. There's almost no indications that they ever leave the stage.
It just coming straight into that act kind of struck me as just really weird that they were kind of suddenly temporarily displaced. It didn't seem particularly well. I mean, it comes across as melodrama a lot of it as well, having blushing young maidens sort of clutching their hands and swooning while being fed these sort of grand guignol descriptions of horrible things. Well,
we have established that they are a bit they're a bit judgy actually, and they're a little bit judgy earlier in the text, so maybe they're that sort of goes with the nature of their character. I don't know if they have characters. I think that's why we have to go back and discuss actually about the nature of the chorus. I'm not a fan of the chorus generally as a thing outside of Greek tragedy. Lynsey, long time to get to you.
Yes, no, I just wanted to make a very brief and sort of insignificant point, which is that the amount of time spent talking about and describing Giscard's death is much bigger than the role of Giscard itself. I mean, Giscard has a really comparatively small bit earlier in the play. We see him in a couple of dumb shows, but we don't really, delve that deeply into him. And this description just completely puts him right at the center of it, which I think is really interesting.
No, I like that, and it is the question of does does it matter to Renuchio who it is? It's simply what he's witnessed that might be the important thing. And again, the dumb shows always do this. This happened with Gorbodoc as well, which is same sort of period and same sort of auspices. Of the dumb shows invite us to add visualizations at other points in the text as well. I mean, I have to say there's an element of this of wanting not to literally depict this while he's talking about it, but maybe there's something visual that we could add that's quite weird. I think there's something about that creeping terror and that creeping horror genre thing that might be really interesting. Eric?
I was going to say that, like, just when Greg was reading about, like, thrice did they pull and thrice they loosed him, my brain went, okay, so how crap are these people at hanging people? Sorry, but, like, it just, like, if it takes you 3 tries, then it usually kind of doesn't, like, he's either really, really sort of light or you're just not trying hard enough, kind of, which obviously is what he's going for.
Well, having staged a few strangulations in my time, and done a certain amount of research on this, so they're pulling cords, they're not necessarily actually hanging him, and it takes a long time, and it isn't easy. And it is also that slight question: are they deliberately drawing it out, and as well? So there's a bit of ambiguity as to precisely that, but they're cruel hands. They're fierce intent with haste, so maybe they're not. It's not like they do it every day. This madness of the kings is sort of twiddling along in the background. Cheerful, happy stuff. Let us. We've paused. This is technically Act 5, Scene 2, because the scenes are dependent on primary entrances and exits, not because the stage is clear. So we paused as Gismunda has come out of her chamber. So Renuchio has said, I really don't want to see the love interest of the person who I've just helped brutally murder. And the chorus says, Lo, here she comes. And the stage direction for Act 5, Scene 2. Gismunda cometh out of her chamber, to whom Renuchio delivereth his cup, saying,
Thy father, O Queen, here in this cup hath sent the thing to joy and comfort thee with all, which thou lovedst best, even as thou wast content to comfort him with his chief joy of all.
I thank my father and thee, gentle squire, for this thy travail. Take thou for thy pains this bracelet, and commend me to the king.
Renuchio departeth.
So now is come the long-expected hour, the fatal hour I have so looked for. Now hath my father satisfied his thirst with guiltless blood, which he so coveted. What brings this cup? Ah me, I thought no less. It is mine earl's, my county's pierced heart. Dear heart, too dearly hast thou bought my love, extremely rated at too high a price. But my sweet heart, sweet wast thou in thy life, but in thy death thou provest passing sweet. A fitter hearse than this of beaten gold could not be allotted to so good a heart. My father therefore well provided thus to close and wrap thee up in massy gold, and therewithal to send thee unto me, to whom of duty thou dost best belong. My father hath in all his life bewrayed a princely care and tender love to me, but this surpasseth. In his later days to send me this, mine own dear heart, to me. Wert thou not mine, dear heart, whilst that my love danced and played upon thy golden strings? Art thou not mine, dear heart, now that my love is fled to heaven and got him golden wings? Thou art mine own, and still mine own shalt be. Therefore my father sendeth thee to me. Ah, pleasant harbourer of my heart's thought. Ah, sweet delight, the quickener of my soul. 7 times accursed be the hand that wrought thee this despite, to mangle thee so foul. Yet in this wound I see mine own true love, and in this wound thy magnanimity, and in this wound I see thy constancy. Go, gentle heart, go rest thee in thy tomb. Receive this token at thy last farewell. Thine own true heart anon will follow thee, which panting lusteth for thy company. Thus hast thou run, poor heart, thy mortal race, and rid thy life from fickle fortune's snares. Thus hast thou lost this world and worldly cares, and of thy foe, to honour thee withal, received a golden grave to thy desert. Nothing doth want to thy just funeral but my salt tears to wash thy bloody wound, which to the end thou mightst receive. Behold, my Father sends thee in this cup of gold, and thou shalt have them, though I was resolved to shed no tears, but with a cheerful face. Once did I think to wet thy funeral only with blood, and with no weeping eye. This done, forthwith my soul shall fly to thee, for therefore did my Father send thee me. Ah, my pure heart, with sweeter company or more content, how safer may I prove to pass to places all unknown with thee. Why die I not therefore? Why do I stay? Why do I not this woeful life forego, and with these hands enforce this breath away? What means this gorgeous, glittering head attire? How ill beseem these billaments of gold, thy mournful widowhood. Away with them.
She undresseth her hair.
So let thy tresses, flaring in the wind, untrimmed hang about thy bared neck. Now, hellish furies, set my heart on fire, bolden my courage, strengthen ye my hands against their kind, to do a kindly deed. But shall I then unreconed down descend? Shall I not work some just revenge on him that thus hath slain my love? Shall not these hands fire his gates and make the flame to climb up to the pinnacles with burning brands, and on his cinders wreak my cruel teen? Be still, fond girl, content thee first to die. This venomed water shall abridge thy life.
She taketh a vial of poison out of her pocket.
This for the same intent provided I, which can both ease and end this raging strife. Thy father by thy death shall have more woe than fire or flames within his gates can bring. Content thee then in patience hence to go. Thy death his blood shall wreak upon the king. Now not alone, a grief to die alone, the only mirror of extreme annoy. But not alone thou diest, my love, for I will be co-partner of thy destiny. Be merry then, my soul. Canst thou refuse to die with him that death for thee did choose?
What damned fury hath possessed our queen? Why sit we still, beholding her distress? Madam, forbear, suppress this headstrong rage.
Maidens, forbear your comfortable words.
O worthy queen, rashness doth overthrow the author of his resolution.
Where hope of help is lost, what booteth fear?
Fear will avoid the sting of infamy.
May good or bad reports delight the dead?
If of the living yet the dead have care,
An easy grief by counsel may be cured.
But headstrong mischiefs princes should avoid.
In headlong griefs and cases desperate,
Call to your mind, Gismund, you are the queen.
unhappy widow, wife, and paramour,
Think on the king.
the king, the tyrant king,
your father,
yes, the murderer of my love.
his force,
The dead fear not the force of men,
His care and grief.
that neither cared for me nor grieved at the murder of my love. My mind is settled. You with these vain words withhold me but too long from my desire. Depart ye to my chamber.
we will haste to tell the king hereof.
And the chorus depart into the palace.
I will prevent both you and him. Lo, here this hearty draught, the last that in this world I mean to taste. Dreadless of death, mine earl, I drink to thee. So now, work on. Now doth my soul begin to hate this light, wherein there is no love. No love of parents to their children, no love of princes to their subjects true, no love of ladies to their dearest loves. Now pass I to the pleasant land of love, where heavenly love immortal flourisheth. The gods abhor the company of men. Hell is on earth, yea, hell itself is heaven compared with earth. I call to witness heaven. Heaven, said I, no, hell record I call. And thou, stern goddess of revenging wrongs, witness with me, I die for his pure love that liveth mine.
And she lieth down and covereth her face with her hair. I did miss a stage direction to read out midway before the hair was undressed, before the vial of poison was taken out, that Gismunda actually kisses this token of thy last farewell. I mean, is it literally the heart or just the cup? I'm just wondering how visually that changes, of course. So yeah, she could be quite bloody. That's just the point I wanted to make there. Several things. I thought the speech at the end there really gets you. I mean, that thing of, to hate this light wherein there is no love. There's no love here. There's no love here. I'm going to die. That's where love is. Whoa, my, that's hard. I'm also fascinated by the chorus, who just go, yeah, we're going to tell the king. I mean, I'm really not on the side of the chorus in this play at all. They are not the good guys. Think on your father. Yeah, that's why we're in this mess. Yeah. Thoughts on the room, because there's some really good stuff in there. Lynsey, you were inhabiting it, so yes.
Yes, I was just struck as I was reading it. I mean, I did read it in quite a measured way because obviously it is a reading and I wasn't familiar with it. But it seems to me that that the language suggests that kind of quite stoical in a way, quite measured, quite calm, quite resolute. All of those things in contrast with the Renuchio's, if that's the right name, I can never remember it. Really graphic and gory description of Giscard's death. I just thought it was an extraordinary contrast.
Yeah, I think that was coming out in the chat as well, though, as you were doing that. I particularly love the fact that you very calmly tip the messenger who's handed you, because you kind of knew this was coming. So it's not like you, oh, what's this lovely present? It's not, you've come to hand me whatever particular horrible thing my father's giving me now. Yes, that's what it is. So yeah. Other thoughts? Genuinely, this act is doing interesting things. Eric.
Well, we also have that structural thing of a character comes on for 3 lines and then leaves. But then, Renuchio, I mean,
he was already on. To be fair,
yeah,
he said
true.
quite a lot.
Yes.
That's just that's an illusion created by the illusory scene change.
What I was actually going to say was that bit about why die I not, therefore why do I stay? Why do I not this woeful life forego and so on? That bit just feels like you could take it out of context and use it for anything, almost like you could use it for Hero and Leander. You could use it for, I don't know, any romantic couple that dies. Like one of the two of them dies and stuff, and then the other one has to like the survivor basically. And it's like sort of very powerful after the whole like thing of hearing how he died as well.
You've got these lines. Hell is on earth, yea, hell itself is heaven compared with earth. I mean, whew. Other thoughts? Rachael.
Just kind of all this like, just like this play on concepts, like how there's talk of that now. I forget what part it was where it's like talking about angels' wings. And Cupid says all the way back at the beginning that he's wearing nothing but a pair of wings. And I think and then it's talking about the land of love, which is kind of like the land of the dead. And I think there's kind of this meeting point. I think there's in Gismunda's speeches, there's sort of this like unification between the Christian mythology and this Greek mythology that we've been having. And I think there's part of that, church thing where, you drink the wine and it's like Jesus's blood type thing coming into here too, because there's talk of really heaven and hell now more than than Pluto, where we had in like the acts before, and the land of love and the land of dead, and heaven is supposed to be a place of eternal love and like Christian mythology where you live in like with God. So I think there's some of that coming into here. Yeah.
Other thoughts? Eric.
Well, it's just, I don't know, like as we've said with many of these speeches, they're just great monologue pieces by themselves. Even like you can just sort of imagine someone turning up to an audition with this going, and you'd be like, okay, whoa, what just happened there?
Well, again, with all of these speeches, they are two people in the room. They have more of a dynamic to a degree of potentially in terms of, even if Gismunda is largely ignoring the chorus throughout most of this, she's got business. So she kisses the cup a certain section into a third of the way into the long speech. Then she undresses her hair another third of the way along, and then she takes out a vial even sooner than that, and then the chorus speak. So it's not just a wall of words again. It's got actions in the middle of it, and again, whatever the chorus is doing throughout this as well. So yeah, it's really nicely structured, and of course she drinks the poison at the end. Before the end, she's talking about hell and heaven and love and having taken the poison, and obviously it takes a little while to take effect. We still have more to do. Lynsey.
Yes, I don't know if I'm right about this, but it just strikes me that Act 5 has more kind of formal rhetorical sort of measures in it, as it were, than some of the other sections of the play. I don't know if others would agree with that or not. I'm by no means an expert on this, but it just sort of struck me, particularly in Gismunda's speech, the the repetition and the rhythm of it just seemed very it's skilled rhetorically rather than unskilled. That's a terrible sentence, but you know what I mean.
Yes, we have these repetitions: no love of, no love of, no love of, in this wound, being used a lot. I don't know whether that's more than the rest of the play, but I think you might be right on that. Again, that's one to actually sit down and dig into it and to get that. But yeah, it does seem to be using those devices that will really come into their own a little later on. We find it in the Spanish tragedy as well, and this kind of rhetoric being used with these speeches of woe and these great high dramatic moments of despair, etc., etc. So he saw it here first, as nicked from Seneca, as nicked from the Greeks, as nicked. Anyway, it's a whole line of theft. Any additional thoughts before we complete the final draft? Before I give you a dip into the original version. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to wave very briefly this a flag, just to indicate. I don't want to interrupt your text. The point when the original the ending changes from the original. It's not exact, but there is a point where this is the new version. So I just thought I'd put a little visual indicator. I won't make it too silly. I won't start Morris dancing in front of you or anything, but I will vaguely indicate that. So Gismunda has taken the poison. She has lain down and covered her face with her hair, the hair that she undressed earlier. Act 5, Scene 3. Tancred in haste cometh out of his palace with Julio.
Where is my daughter?
Behold, here, woeful king.
Ah me, break heart, and thou fly forth my soul. What, doth my daughter Gismund take it so? What hast thou done? Oh, let me see thine eyes. Oh, let me dress up those untrimmed locks. Look up, sweet child, look up, mine only joy. 'Tis I, thy father, that beseecheth thee. Rear up thy body, strain thy dying voice to speak to him. Sweet Gismund, speak to me.
Who stays my soul, who thus disquiets me?
'Tis I, thy father. Ah, behold my tears, like pearled dew that trickle down my cheeks to wash my silver hairs.
O Father King, forbear your tears, your plaint will not avail.
Oh, my sweet heart, hast thou received thy life from me, and wilt thou to requite the same yield me my death? Yea, death and greater grief, to see thee die for him that did defame thine honour thus, my kingdom and thy name?
Yea, therefore, Father, gave you life to me, that I should die, and now my date is done. As for your kingdom and mine own renown, which you affirm dishonoured to be, that fault impute it where it is. For he that slew mine earl and sent his heart to me, his hands have brought this shame and grief on us. But Father, yet if any spark remain of your dear love, if ever yet I could so much deserve, or at your hands desire, grant that I may obtain this last request.
Say, lovely child, say on, whate'er it be. Thy father grants it willingly to thee.
My life I crave not, For it is not now in you to give, nor in myself to save. Nor crave I mercy for mine earl and me, who have been slain with too much cruelty. With patience I must a while abide within this life, which now will not be long. But this is my request. Father, I pray that, since it pleased so your majesty, I should enjoy my love alive no more. Yet ne'ertheless let us not parted be, whom cruel death could never separate. But as we lived and died together here, so let our bodies be together tombed. Let him with me and I with him be laid within one shrine, wherever you appoint. This, if you grant me, as I trust you will, although I live not to requite this grace, the immortal gods due recompense shall give to you for this. And so, vain world, farewell. My speech is painful, and mine eyesight fails.
My daughter dies. See how the bitter pangs of tyrannous death torments her princely heart. She looks on me, at me she shakes her head. For me she groans, by me my daughter dies. I, the author of this tragedy. On me, ye heavens, throw down your ire. Now dies my daughter. Hence with princely robes.
He throws aside his robes.
O fair in life, thrice fairer in thy death. Dear to thy father in thy life thou wert, but in thy death dearest unto his heart. I kissed thy paled cheeks and closed thine eyes. This duty once I promised to myself, thou shouldst perform to me, but false hope. Now, ruthful, wretched king, what resteth thee? Wilt thou now live, wasted with misery? Wilt thou now live, that with these eyes did see thy daughter dead? Wilt thou now live to see her funerals, that of thy life was stay? Wilt thou now live, that wast her life's decay? Shall not this hand reach to this heart the stroke? Mine arms are not so weak, nor are my limbs so feeble with mine age, nor is my heart so daunted with the dread of cowardice, but I can wreak due vengeance on that head that wrought the means these lovers now be dead. Julio, come near, and lay thine own right hand upon my thigh. Now take thine oath of me.
I swear to thee, my liege lord, to discharge whatever thou enjoyest, Julio.
First, then, I charge thee that my daughter have her last request. Thou shalt within one tomb inter her earl and her, and thereupon engrave some royal epitaph of love. That done, I swear thee thou shalt take my corpse, which thou shalt find by that time done to death, and lay my body by my daughter's side. Swear this, I say.
I swear. But will the king do so unkingly now?
A kingly deed the king resolves to do.
To kill himself?
To send his soul to ease.
Doth Jove command it?
Our stars compel it.
The wise man overrules his stars.
So we.
Undaunted should the minds of kings endure.
So shall it in this resolution. Julio, forbear, and as thou lovest the king, when thou shalt see him weltering in his gore, stretching his limbs and gasping in his groans, then, Julio, set to thy helping hand, redouble stroke on stroke, and drive the stab down deeper to his heart, to rid his soul. Now stand aside, stir not a foot, lest thou make up the fourth to fill this tragedy. These eyes that first beheld my daughter's shame, these eyes that longed for the ruthful sight of her earl's heart, these eyes that now have seen his death, her woe, and her avenging teen, upon these eyes we must be first avenged. Unworthy lamps of the accursed lump, out of your dwellings.
And he puts out his eyes.
So, it fits us thus, blood and blindness, to go seek the path that leadeth down to everlasting night. Why frightest thou, dastard? Be thou desperate. One mischief brings another on his neck, as mighty billows tumble in the seas. Now, daughter, seest thou not how I immerse my wrath that thus bereft thee of thy love upon my head? Now, fathers, learn by me. be wise. Be warned to use more tenderly the jewels of your joys. Daughter, I come.
And he kills himself. And about time too. So many things here that are... Yeah, so we've got the Oedipus moment. It's clearly just they've read Oedipus recently and just went, yeah, gonna have a bit of that. A bit of blinding on stage and then killing yourself. Gismunda's last speech, can we die? Can we be buried in the same tomb, Father? What? I'm not buying this. How Gismunda, how are you feeling about your deathbed convo with Father?
It didn't, when I was reading it, it didn't strike me as being any more implausible than anything else that we've we've had in this play. Are you thinking, why do you not buy it?
I'm just going this. It just seems like it's not connecting with the what she was saying earlier. She's and this so. I just yeah, I'm not going with it. I'm not with it.
Because she says in her earlier speech this thing about, I'm not going to take revenge on him because my death alone will be the worst torment I could ever lay at his doorstep. I think she sort of I don't know, maybe that has a bearing on it that she's already dealt him his mortal blow in a way.
So this is actually a cruel bit of revenge.
It's sort of.
I can buy that.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it like that. I didn't necessarily see it like that as I was just kind of reading the lines, but yeah.
Other thoughts? So that's clearly my problem. So I'm going to go over that again and see if I'm just not. So yeah, Julio is in again getting some tidying to do. Being given all the jobs. Lay thine own right hand upon my thigh. I don't recall that being where you did the oath thing. Am I missing something? I'm doing this for comic effect. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for lowering the tone.
I found it quite hard to deliver that line portentously amongst the rest of them, unless it's a last minute gag on Julio.
Yeah.
Everybody's whipping boy. It's another great speech. It's interesting reading it as an actor because. And it would be, obviously, this is an insoluble question, but it would be really interesting to know how this was originally formed, because everything I've read of this play so far in Act 5 is just utter wallowing in everything, whether that's kind of, jokes about, whether it's a sort of wordplay of dear heart, sweetheart, gentle heart, oh God, it's actually a real heart, as well as calling someone as a sort of metaphor, but also how many, it's like the apotheosis of every Greek tragedy thrown together, and this sort of almost Addams Family-esque kind of everything tends towards death and destruction. And it's a brilliant speech, and actually my instinct with it would be to go completely over the top with it and play it at about 125%. But it's interesting as a modern actor, I can imagine in a modern production, being told to actually go against that, pull it back. But the rhythm of the thing absolutely drives you, and like Lynsey said, the rhetorical tropes in it and the sort of the sounds, the alliteration of it, just all comes. It was interesting, a haunted comment earlier. It sounds like this whole play is just haunted by kind of the spirit of death, just pushing everything. Everything automatically comes to ashes and death and gore. And
well, Gismunda does talk of the Furies earlier, and we've met them. They're under the floorboards, so. That sense that this house is possessed really, really lands. I mean, the thing also to remember is that this isn't what was performed. This is the later rewrite from the point when I waved my little thing, basically from after father sort of said, "Why have you done this?" Onwards. So that isn't actually quite what was performed. We'll perform, or we will endeavour to read what was performed in a moment. It's a slightly harder text. We have the epilogue that is printed. So I say this is very much looking at the printed artifact. Julio gets the epilogue in this version.
Lo, here the sweets of grisly pale despair. These are the blossoms of this cursed tree. Such are the fruits of too much love and care, overwhelmed in the sense of misery. With violent hands he that his life doth end, his damned soul to endless night doth wend. Now resteth it that I discharge mine oath, to see the unhappy lovers and the king laid in one tomb. I would be very loth you should wait here to see this mournful thing, for I am sure, and do ye all to wit, through grief wherein the lords of Salerne be, these funerals are not prepared yet, nor do they think on that solemnity. For as for the Fury, ye must understand, now she hath seen the effect of her desire. She is departed, and hath left our land, granting this end unto her hellish ire. Now humbly pray we, that our English dames may never lead their loves into mistrust, but that their honors may avoid the shames that follow such as live in wanton lust. We know they bear them on their virtues bold, with blissful chastity so well content, that, when their lives and loves abroad are told, all men admire their virtuous government. Worthy to live where the Fury never came, worthy to live where love doth always see, worthy to live in golden trump of fame, worthy to live and honored still to be. Thus end our sorrows with the setting sun. Now draw the curtains, for our scene is done.
And thus ends Wilmot's act in the printed version. There's this whole thing about avoiding lust and chastity and blissful stuff, and that turns up all the way through the text. I mean, especially if it's the kind of thing that you're performing before the Queen, you're quite keen on that kind of material. It is a bit much sometimes, though. I have issue. I have less issue with Gismunda's last speech. I had a quick scan. I withdraw my objection. It's fine. Lynsey.
Yeah, I mean, that epilogue can just bugger off, basically. That epilogue is just, I mean, after what we've seen, after all this sort of beautiful and gothic and horrific text, and all of this sort of nobility and all the furies from hell and the snakes and everything else, and somehow it's all about women not having desire. Only women didn't have desire. None of that would have happened. And I just thought, really annoyed.
Yeah, it's the problem with the chorus all the way through the text. Actually, because it's avoiding the obvious problem. The problem is the father. That is the problem.
Cupid.
Well, no, yeah, Cupid's just making her fall in love with someone. I mean, maybe evil vampire Cupid, but
Yeah, it's interesting. Cupid is this engine of the tragedy, and Cupid's reason for that is because he's been disrespected or whatever it was back in Act 1. I'm just like that. Sorry.
Yeah, but he's there just as an agent of chaos, and he doesn't know how it's going to turn out. The Furies do. Whether you've got Furies moving in, that things are not going to go well. Eric.
I was just going to say that now that Lynsey said, yeah, it's because of the respect, my brain just went, I made him an offer he could not refuse. Which it's like basically a bloodbath, isn't it?
Oh yeah, this it's not a cheerful, happy story. This by any stretch of the imagination. Okay. Any additional thoughts, Rachel?
I just wanted to jump in and say I agree with Lynsey that epilogue is just like it seems like, I don't know, we haven't gotten to the original ending yet, but it seems like a cop-out add-on of a moral at the end of this, where this just seemed to be a wild, fun ride of I don't know, death and destruction and Greek tragedy revived.
Right. Well, that seems like a good cue in to reading the earlier version. This hasn't had any modern spelling. I'll do the epilogue to spare the pain and the misery. But it starts with Gismunda, then it's Tancred, and then it's more Tancred, and then it's the epilogue. So we will endeavour to read this well, but I just wanted to make it clear to the listeners at home, this is a slightly trickier bit of text. So Gismunda, your father has come in. He's said, "Oh my sweetheart, hast thou received thy life, and from me, and now I'm going to see you die." And you're going, "Well, you gave me life," and then you continue broadly in this vein.
But in thy breast, if any spark remain of thy dear love, if ever yet I could so much of thee deserve, or at the least, if with my last desire I may obtain this at thy hands, give me this one request, and let me not spend my last breath in vain. My life I desire not, which neither is in thee to give, nor in myself to save, although I would. Nor yet I ask not this as mercy for mine earl in aught to crave, whom I too well do know how thou hast slain. No, no, Father, thy hard and cruel wrong, with patience as I may, I will sustain in woeful life, which now shall not be long. But this one suit, Father, if unto me thou grant, though I cannot the same re-acquit, the immortal goddess shall render unto thee thy due reward, and largely guerdon it, that since it pleased thee not thus secretly I might enjoy my love, his corpse and mine may natheless together graved be, and in one tomb our bodies both to shrine. With which this small request eke do I pray, that on the same graven in brass thou place this woeful epitaph, which I shall say, that all lovers may rue this mournful case. Lo, here within one tomb, where harbour twain, Gismunda queen and County Palorine. She loved him, he for her love was slain, for whose revenge eke lies she here in shrine.
And Gismunda dieth.
Oh me, alas, now do the cruel pains of cursed death my dear daughter bereave. Alas, why bide I here? The sight constrains me, woeful man, this woeful place to leave.
And Tancred cometh out of Gismunda's chamber.
O dolorous hap, ruthful and all of woe! Alas, I, careful wretch, what resteth me? Shall I now live, that with these eyes did so behold my daughter die? What, shall I see her death before my face, that was my life, and I to live, that was her life's decay? Shall not this hand reach to this heart the knife, that may bereave both sight and life away, and in the shadows dark to seek her ghost, and wander there with her? Shall not, alas, this speedy death be wrought, sith I have lost my dearest joy of all? What, shall I pass my later days in pain, and spend mine age in terrace and plaint? Shall I now lead my life as solitary as doeth bird in cage, and feed my woeful years with wailful grief. No, no, so will not I my days prolong, to seek to live 1 hour since she is gone. This breast so cannot bend to such a wrong, that she should die, and I to live alone. No, this will I. She shall have her request, and in most royal sort her funeral will I perform. Within one tomb shall rest her earl and she, her epitaph withal graved thereon shall be. This will I do, and when these eyes some aged tears have shed, the tomb myself then will I creep into, and with my blood all bathe their bodies dead. This heart there will I pierce, and reave this breast, the irksome life, and wreak my wrathful ire upon myself. She shall have her request, and I by death will purchase my desire.
If now perhaps ye either look to see the unhappy lovers or the cruel sire here to be buried as fits their degree, or as the dying lady did require, or as the rueful king in deep despair behight of late, who now himself hath slain, or if perchance you stand in doubtful fear, sith mad Megara is not returned again, lest wandering in the world she so bestow the snakes that crawl about her furious face, as they may raise new ruths, new kinds of woe, both so and there, and such as you per case would be full loaves, so great, so near to see. I am come forth to do you all to weet, through grief wherein the lords of Salerne be. The funeral pomp is not prepared yet, and for the fury you shall understand that neither doeth the little greatest God find such rebelling here in Britain land against his royal power as asketh rod of ruth from hell to wreak his name's decay, nor Pluto heareth English ghosts complain our dames' disdained lives. Therefore you may be free from fear. Sufficeth to maintain the virtues which we honour in you all, so as our Britain ghosts, when life is past, may praise in heaven, not plain in Pluto's hall our dames, but hold them virtuous and chaste, worthy to live where fury never came, where love can see and bears no deadly bow, whose lives eternal trump of glorious fame with joyful sound to honest ears shall blow. Thus ended the original epilogue. They're very different texts in style. Very different. I'm really looking forward. I mean, we did that just as a brief compare and contrast. We will go back to the original text because there's already lots of questions about stagecraft that's really interesting there. It's a much more measured ending. There is no eye gouging. There is no on-stage death. He just says he will bury his daughter, and then he, at some point when he's cried for long enough, he will himself die as well. And the epilogue's actually quite playful. It's going, hope you weren't scared. I know you were. Don't worry, Megara's not coming back again. It's actually the kind of playful, almost Vice-like audience interaction stuff. So it's a very different beast. Really interesting. Which do you prefer? No, I won't play that game. We don't play favourites, but they're very different. Thoughts from the room? Gismunda and Tancred, either from the people themselves or the people listening. How did you feel the difference between what they were saying? I'll go to Lynsey first.
Yeah, it was just very interesting that in the second version, she not only asks that they're buried together, but that he writes an epitaph so everybody knows their names and who they were and how they died. And at no point anywhere in there does lust, I was a slut bag and therefore I'm dead, ever come into it. And although neither does, my father was, a bit obsessed with me and therefore couldn't control himself when I took a lover. But it's just very interesting that epitaph forms part of it. And then, I mean, this epilogue it's just very interesting. This and as you say, this playfulness about, no, it's all right. Things aren't so bad that Megaera is coming from hell to, visit England and, wreak havoc upon everyone. So don't worry about it. It's very interesting.
Mm. Yeah, and though there is a little bit of the, in Britain we're all virtuous and chaste. There's a little bit at the end. Otherwise, it's just not the theme that we're getting in the later version that we've read the whole of. So it's really interesting that. Alex.
And just the Tancred bit. It's interesting thinking what would be more impactful on a stage for a contemporary audience and for modern day audience, because this one is much more, it's almost like in the one that we read first, it sort of becomes all about him, and he sort of gets to sort of do the Oedipus thing and messily die, and sort of, whereas here it's a bit more open-ended. It's like, no, I'm not going to let Julio come in and bury her. I'm going to deal with all of that grief and take some responsibility, I suppose, to a degree, that I'm going to do the burying and all of this and ensure the epitaph, and then I'm going to crawl into a tomb and end it all, rather than sort of getting off a bit lightly by having a moment in the spotlight and ending it all before I've sort of had to process any of that. I suppose there's something much more melancholic and somber about.
It's a bit more adult, really, from that.
Yes.
The thing about the mess. Somebody else. He's outsourced not only the burying of his own daughter, but burying of himself, and also just what he's done to to this room. It's such a different tone, as well. I mean, there's something. It's weird. It's the fact that in the introduction of the printed version that we've read the whole of, it was sort of saying changing those things that I wasn't, that we thought, were a bit almost excessive, and when we were younger, and it's sort of, I'm going, no, you've added all sorts of stuff that, frankly, I think you might need to see an analyst about. Because you've sat at home and decided to put this in. This isn't part of a collaborative effort to make some theatre in the 1560s. This is you thinking, I'll print this in the 1590s. So it's a totally different question of why he's writing this. Lynsey.
Yes, I'm so sorry if I missed this. So he's saying at the end he's going to, having killed himself, somebody's then going to put his bleeding body into the same tomb as his daughter and her lover. This is okay. I didn't quite catch that just now. That's just mad. Just mad.
Yeah. Eric.
I was just wondering, is the same monarch around at this point? Because obviously context has a lot to do with sort of what would be printed at the time, and sort of going, yes, of course, this is perfectly reasonable for this time period, and especially by this man. I mean.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's still Elizabeth. It's an older Elizabeth, and I think there is something, and I don't want to speak about this authoritatively, but there is something there is something about afoot in terms of this idea of chastity and to a degree virginity, etc., that is part of where Elizabeth is, and so this may be the later version's obsession with that. I don't know how much it's embedded in the earlier version is maybe part of that. So it may be very much of its time and of its ilk. Lynsey.
Yeah, just picking up on that point, I think absolutely, remembering way back to my uni days, there's this idea that Elizabeth's power extended from her virginity and from her chastity, and she as a woman was more powerful as a single woman than she would have been had she married someone, and therefore this idea of the Virgin Queen and the chastity and everything wasn't just a kind of convenient justification of her single state, but it was actually it gave her what power she had at that time, or was very much part of that various numerous factors coming together to make her have the status that she did, apart from being queen. So very interesting to compare the times and the ages of Elizabeth with the texts that we have, I think.
Yeah, I think when we come back to look at the earlier text, because of course that's coming from a time when there's an awful lot of people haranguing her to get married. And it never really goes away to a degree, but when she's young, much younger, and so there's an interesting question about the original version, what the politics of that is, because you can, to a degree, in a performance to royalty, you can harangue them a little bit. You can get away with it on an occasional basis. You can't print it though. The Gorbodoc, which we've done already, there is a scene in that which we know has been cut. There is a dumb show that has been changed from the original version that was performed before the Queen, which was very much saying, don't marry this guy, marry this guy, is not in the printed version at all. And it's been there's some substitution and cuts occurred. So there's a very big difference between what you can perform to the Queen, and weirdly, you can be much more explicit and political live than you can be in print later on. Those are more questions which we may wrangle with. Final thoughts from the room, I think, on the play overall, and also just what you've caught in this session. So I'll start with Eric, who's been here throughout in the darkness waiting.
As always, I like the language of it, the sort of the way it's written. We've said about the speeches, blah blah, but I mean, it's just very powerful, like the way it's done. I think if you did it at pace, it would hit you like a block, like a wall, basically, because it's got this sort of intense goth vibe, especially the graphic stuff that we've discussed. I don't know if you would need a trigger warning for that. And also, I have some notes here of things it reminded me of, and they're very like different. It goes from like Alice Cooper's vaudeville performance type things to like Bluebeard, which is very dark. Like the original story is very, very dark. So I don't know. I think it depends how you perform it, and it could be stageable depending on your company.
I have to. I definitely think this is very, very stageable. The kind of performance it would be, I have lots of thoughts in my mind, because I kind of want to throw lots and lots of things at this. I really want to expand on the dumb shows and the kind of physical, visual side of it. I mean, as a lighting designer, this is just makes me very happy. Lynsey, final thoughts?
Yes, final thoughts. I'm looking forward to when we come back to this at some point. I think it's got so much in it that's worth exploring, and any other fragments of previous or later versions or whatever we have, it's good to throw it all in, I think. I mean, it's it's really interesting. It's really interesting. I suppose I feel that the characters which are most vivid in it, sadly Tancred, because I don't want him to be, the hero, effectively, but his characterization is very vivid, as is Cupid and Megara, and so it does seem that I guess the baddies get the best parts, maybe. But yeah, that I really look forward to when we come back to it.
Lovely. yes, if we enjoy them because of the terrible things they do. Right, Alex, you were not here last time or in the past, so you've come in, staggered into I think in a sense the most effective act, because we've been building towards this. We've got so much stuff coming at it. It's very intense, and genuinely affecting at times. Even on a read through of just going, some of this dialogue is really nicely done. Where would you go with this?
It was interesting, Eric talking about Alice Cooper. I didn't know anything about Alice Cooper other than I know who he is and I've never listened to his music. I like to try and find something that I could compare it to, or sort of how I would frame it. And to me, almost, this is going to sound ridiculous, but it came across as the sort of chamber equivalent of a rock opera, that actually you have quite a small concentrated cast of maybe 4 or 6 figures, and possibly a potentially slightly redundant chorus of 3 or 4. And these long sort of passages, these incredibly emotive, imagery-filled sort of soliloquies, addresses. And I think rock opera, I mean, again, rock operas, it's not really a genre that I would personally go and choose to see. But I think because of that slightly gothic-y, baroque feeling and the sort of like performativity of that, particularly the sort of version that we read first, of the sort of blood and guts and gore and lighting effects and things like that. But yeah, I really liked it, which I'm surprised at because I'm not a massive fan of sort of revenge tragedy stuff. Prefer funnier stuff. But I really liked it, and those speeches actually, like, they're enormously effective and very easy to play as well. The way it's, even on a cold read, the way it's written, it's really interesting. And going back to the way they were written to kind of cue actors who wouldn't have had much rehearsal, I guess, into them, that you sort of just let the words do the work. But yes, I liked it.
Yeah, it's that thing that, you know, we talk about whether you cut things, what you do with the text, because we got 2 texts. You know, there's a whole series of editorial decisions, and you know what kind of production you do. And again, it's that element. I want to do something really tight with this, relatively short. I don't think there should be an interval. If there's an interval, there's time to release the tension. And I think this is just something that you just keep turning that crank. Because, you know, there are no gags, there are no comics, there is no respite, there is music, but the music probably just makes it worse, you know, and it just gets more and more extreme. And if you give anyone the moment time to think about it, then you're in trouble. So that's sort of in my head at the moment. Greg, you similarly have dived in at the death.
But what a part to dive in with. I mean, no, you know, nice and cheerful, lots of laughs, all for the wrong reasons. I really love the echoes backwards from things like the Greeks and the Romans, forwards to things like rock operas and that wonderful T.S. Eliot play. But literally, I was going, well, at least they don't set up as the kindly ones this time. At least they're proper Furies. I mean, it's, great play. Really hope I'm around when we do the original.
Well, with the nature of the doubling in this play, you know, we could have read it actually with a much fewer people in the room. Means that it's a reasonable bet that it will come back for an evening session when we do it. So I'm going to give it a gap though, so that we have enough time to sort of separate and forget everything, and you know, for the personnel to turn over a bit.
That's about 2 weeks with me.
Yeah. Rachael, final thoughts?
Yeah, I like it. I would definitely like to come back to this again. And I agree with that, like, rock opera. It has that weird, like, what do you call it? It has that weird, like, late night double feature Rocky Horror Picture Show type, you know, just B movie weirdness kind of that it could turn into. Yeah. So there's so much going on here that's there's just so much good stuff that I've talked so much over the 3 days about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I really like about a text, is when it gives you ideas about staging. It gives you a whole series of options and plays around. I mean, I've talked about Lynsey, we've talked about horror, we've talked about rock opera, we've talked about all sorts of different things, and the possibility of sculpting out options for a performance is always what I find most exciting about a play. Sometimes when a play is just, this is a good play, poof, there's nothing to excite me. Whereas with this, I was going, well, there's this, but there's also this, and maybe I should put this in there. And you don't just have to hand it to actors and tell them to go away with it, get on with it. You have to devise and design and come up with stuff to really make it sing. I've really enjoyed this week. I'd like to thank all the readers for all their wonderful work today, and I will say farewell. Bye.